and that consciousness arises when we get closer to God by sitting back and thinking about something, maybe even meditating on it for a little bit, and really just kind of sitting back, and you get that God consciousness where you can see all and see everything. You see the future, you see the past, you see the patterns, you see the world, and you say, this ain't for me. I'm out of here. I'm not doing this no more. So consciousness and critical thinking skill are deeply connected, and they're also, and I guarantee you, 100 times out of 100, that a conscious person with critical thinking skills and the patience to execute those skills is going to be far more wealthy and far happier than the person who does not do that. The person who just acts on the situation, responds to the moment. So I think that this is a skill that can be trained. This is something that can be taught to the children. But we have to do this. I don't think that capitalist America ever wants you to be conscious of anything. They don't want you to be conscious of what you eat. They want you to eat the cheeseburger because it's good and because you're hungry. Don't worry about the diabetes and the cancer and the Alzheimer's and everything else that's going to happen from all the sugar, fat, and grease you're going to consume. Just eat the Popeyes. It's delicious, right? They want you to even when it comes to your economic choices, they don't want you really sitting back as a 19, 20-year old and looking at a job and thinking, okay, how's this going to work for me when I'm 40? Is this really the direction I want my life to go? They want you to say, oh, well, I just took that job because they paid me money and I'm struggling for money, so I have to go get this job right away, without even considering that there are millions of people who started a job when they were young just to satisfy a temporary financial need, and they ended up in that same job when they were 30, 35, 40 years old, right? And so that inability to sort of sit back and say, well, what's the plan for me? What's the big picture in all this? How does this fit into the plan? How does this next move fit into the final objective? When you don't do that, that's how you end up in places that you did not intend to go. Last piece on this that I'll lay out there, and this relates to investing. I remember my father said something to me when I was 17 that really got my attention. It was very quick and very simple. And he wasn't that old. I was 17. My father was 35. And he said to me, um, I guess because he felt like I wasn't focused enough. And boy, you better get it together because one day you'll wake up 35 years old and you won't recognize your own life. And I thought about that. And then when I became 35, I started noticing how many people, if you go to most people that are 35, 40 years old and you say, when you were 20, did you think that this was the life you were going to have? Did you think that this is where you would be? Where did you think you were going to be when you were 18, 19 years old? A lot of people have a disconnect. There's a disconnect between where they thought they'd go at 18 and where they ended up at 35 or 40 years old. And what had happened was it's like the compilation of a bunch of little decisions that were made in the moment. And the next thing you know, you just have this big thing. Like your life in a way, it's kind of like your life is like a painting where, if you want to create a masterpiece, you have to think about where every stroke is going to go, right? You have to kind of lay it out like that, right? But if you just are taking the brush and just you don't know what the hell you're gonna get, right? You're gonna get a big mess. You're gonna get chaos, right? Because maybe it took some discipline and energy to minimize the amount of entropy that would occur in that process. Meaning that if you put that energy into saying, okay, let me be structured and careful here because I can only paint this one time, then you could get the painting that you want. And life is like that in a way. I mean, to some extent, we can only do it one time. You can only be 27 one time. You can only be 32 one time. You can only be 45 one time.